administrators play a crucial role in mitigating potential data loss and outages. You can take proactive measures to do regular backups, backup verification, off-site storage, performance monitoring, and capacity planning. You can also do reactive measures like incident response and troubleshooting skills. One of the main things you can do to mitigate potential data loss is to create backups regularly. We're going to talk about here how to do backups in an efficient manner, how to do the backup verification, that is to make sure that your backups have integrity and they can be restored, and then how to also have those backups in an off-site storage. So basically you can protect yourself just in case your main backup storage goes out or defective, then you have other copies somewhere else. So let's talk about first backup. And simply you can do backups manually, but we're also going to talk at the end of this about creating policies. That means that you can automate all of this process. So when I go here and I can do a backup, I can select the database that I want to do, or I can do the whole instance. In this case, I'm just going to do one database, and you have options for those. Those are going to be the full differential transaction log and file. File will be just copying that MDF file. Now, in this case, we're going to do a full backup. And also notice here that we have the verified backup. That will actually give you the verification that this backup file that we are going to create can be restored later on. So it gives you kind of like an assurance that whatever you're backing up is restorable later. Okay, so we're going to do that because that doesn't take very long. It takes a couple of seconds to do that restoration. Then we can go ahead and say next. And this is where we can do either a single file, meaning one backup. In this case, is an extension called .safe that you can put anywhere you want as a single file backup. In this case, it's going to be a location that you choose to do. We can have a naming convention to create different folders, or a naming convention for the file of the backup. In this case, it's going to be the instance. So in this case, it's the instance Ibanez. The database is going to be SQL DM repository, and the backup type is going to be full. And then at the end, if you want to add the timestamp, that's going to be the date, the time, and the hours in seconds as well. And then after that, you can also do the mirror archives if you want to. And this is where we're saying that if you want to put this in an off-site storage, then you can do that, whether you want to put it on a different disk or on a network share, you can put those in that area. The other options that we have for backups are also going to be here, strip files, which is going to be dividing that backup into 2, 3, 4 different files. And then we have integration with Data Domain, Amazon Cloud, Microsoft Azure, and also Tivoli. Now, if you want to also do compression, we have different levels of compression that we can do, whether there's static compression from level 1 to level 4, meaning the least compression and the most compression, or the ones that are intelligent. And those two are basically want to achieve a goal, and the goal is to have a minimal size for that storage backup, right? And the other one is going to be iSpeed, which is going to be as fast as possible that we can do that backup. So either one that you use is going to, before you do the backup, is going to check for your resources, CPU, memory, and disk. And based on those resources and how they're being utilized, then it will go out and try to use more or less of those resources, depending on how they're being used, to create that backup as quickly as possible, or with the largest compression or the most compression as possible. After that, we also have notification in case anything fails or anything goes wrong, and then you can go ahead and do your backup. One of the great things about this product is that you can create a policy, and the policy is nothing else than creating a schedule for your backups. So if you create a policy here, for example, I'm going to edit this one that we have. then you can create this policy that says, I want to do all the products or all these databases. You can do all of them, or maybe all the ones that start with S for SQL. And then I can put all of those or save or whatever they are, right? I want to put them all the ones that start with S. Once I do that, then I can say next. That's going to be in my policy. So in the future, if I add another database that's called SQL1, it will automatically be added to this policy. And then I can choose to do the full, the differential, and the log files all together if I want to. That means that I can do all of that configuration that I do earlier, but do it here in one page for all of them. Then I can go to next, and then I can choose where I want to keep those backups and for how long do I want to keep those backups. So for example, here the full backups, which I'm probably going to do every week, I want to keep them for 2 weeks. Okay, and then if I look at the differential backups, which I'm probably going to do daily, I want to keep those for 3 days. After that, I want to delete it. Now, when I go to next, is the last thing that you can create a schedule. And for the full, like I said earlier, I want to do it weekly, every Sunday or every Saturday at midnight. In this case, I want to do a Sunday every midnight, every Sunday at midnight. And then the differentials, I'm going to do the same thing, but in this case, I'm going to do it daily at 2 o'clock in the morning. And my logs, they occur every 4 hours. So every day, every 4 hours. And only from midnight until 5 a.m. in the morning. So I want to do those at night. The continuous monitoring of database performance helps identify and resolve potential issues before they escalate into outages. So for example, with SQL Diagnostic Manager, we can be proactive about those things. If we have an environment, in this case, 5 different instances, I can very quickly start navigating into the ones that have issues and see where the issues are coming from. I can double click and then I can take a look at the dashboard of all of those events that are going on and all those metrics that we have. So whether it's CPU, whether it's memory, network, disk information, or maybe things like session, server waits, and database. Maybe I can see the database by transactions per second, or maybe by writes per second. So I have a good visualization of what's going on right now, and also what's going on in the past. So in this case, from here to here, it's going to be 1 hour of data. So I can see everything that's going on here 1 hour back. Now I can go into more time than that if I wanted to, the last 8 hours, last 5 days, and enter a custom range as well if I want to. So it's up to you how you want to see the data. Now, the other thing that you can do here is that every point that we have here is going to be an annotation of the value that was collected. By default, we collect the information every six minutes, but in my case, I'm collecting the information every 2 minutes. So that information that shows here is going to be every 2 minutes. We show you things like total use for memory, as well as the allocated and the SQL use that is being used for SQL Server. Now, once we look at this data, we can also figure out where we have contentions and peaks like that, right? So once we find those areas where we have contentions, we can go here using this sliders, we can go back and see where we had a specific contention. Now, it tells you here that you're in historical mode, so you're not in real time anymore, which is okay, but it's just telling you that now you're looking at historical mode. In this case, I'm looking here at 9:30 at night. And that information is what happened at that specific time. Even though my time is 9:40 or 9:39 right now, but you can see here 9 minutes ago, I can see what was going on. Now, one of the great things about this is I can go into, let's say, for example, a menu of sessions, and I keep the same time frame, 9:30 p.m. Now, I can go here to details, and I can see all of the sessions that were running during that time. I can move back 9:28, 9:30, 9:32, every 2 minutes, 9:34, and I can see everything that was going on during that time. Now, when I click on any of those, I can sort by CPU. So I can see here my biggest offender with CPU, and then in this case it says session 54. from host Ibanez, from user SQL admin, is executing this command. And it's taking that much of CPU, 109 milliseconds. Not much. But if we go back, maybe we can see something that has more, and then we can identify what was taking the most time in CPU during that specific time period. The same thing I can do it by I/O if I'm most interested by I/O, and I can see the I/O here, the biggest offender, and maybe the session number, the host, the user, the database, the application that is coming from, and the command line. Now, another area that SQL Diagnostic Manager can help you is with capacity planning. And for that, on the reports, we have what we call plan. And those are 3 reports that allows you to do a forecast on disk space, database growth forecast, and table growth forecast. Let's take a look at database forecast. If I click on that, I can select the instance that I want, select the database that I want to do the forecast, and say the last 30 days. I want to do a linear, I can do linear or exponential, and forecast, I want to forecast it to 10 days. Show tabular data, that means it's going to show me the information on the bottom. So when I click OK, you're going to see this information. You can see here the data points, and then you can see the linear trend that is going to be the next 10 days. So where are we going to be in the next 10 days? Somewhere in between here, maybe 380 or something like that, 380 megabytes. Now you see all the information here in tabular information on the bottom, but we also want to look at this and say, well, show me the space available so I can see that in relation to the space that I have available. So run report again, and now you can see that it's a different story. It's not moving that much, and this is my space available, so I'm not running into any risk. Now, the other thing that I can do is exponential, so it's going to be a little bit more aggressive. And then, as you can see here, because this database is actually being groomed every so often, so, you know, it's going up and down and up and down. And what you can see here is because it's being groomed, now the exponential is showing me that it's actually not growing that much. It's kind of like staying steady or going down. So this is a great way of doing capacity planning to understand what are going to be your needs in the future. Now, from a reactive measure, you can do incident management or incident response. And that is, what is it that you do in order to get notified if something happens so you can quickly address the issue of either the resources or the database. So for that, we can then use the actions and responses. And that is called alert, action, and responses. And that allows you to create a rule that you can basically go here, either edit or create a new one. I already have one in place, so let's take a look at that. Let's say I want to be notified about blocking and deadlock. And then I call this blocking and deadlock first shift. That means that that's going to be for my group that works from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. So if I want to do a second shift or maybe a weekend shift, maybe I can create 2 different rules for those 2 different groups. Now, you have conditions, and then you have actions. In this case, I say the conditions have to be these. SQL Server instance that comes from a tag of production. So basically, all of my servers that are tagged with the production label, they will be in this rule. Now, it says here also from a specific time frame. So you can see here from 8 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. So only during those times, because this is for my group that works on the first shift. Okay. Now, the next one is going to be, what metrics do I want to choose here? And the metrics that I want to choose are going to be blocking session and deadlock. You can do more than that. You can do only one. And then you can say, what is the critical level that is going to alert me? So when it crosses warning or threshold. We already configured that in the alerts, in the metrics, what is going to be that level, that threshold. All it's saying here, if it gets to that level, then go ahead and send me an email or the action that we're going to choose. In this case, we're going to do email and other actions as well. Now, the last thing that we have is 8 to 5 p.m., production, and that's it. We don't have anything else. So what happens? If this occurs on a Saturday, nothing is going to happen. If it happens at 6 p.m., nothing is going to happen. If it happens with my servers that are in the tag of cloud, nothing is going to happen either. If it happens with CPU, nothing is going to happen because the only metrics selected here are blocking session and deadlock. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to send it to this email address. So that is one of my actions here. I enable that and I send it to admin@idera.com. Now that's going to send that email with all the details about that event, whether it's a blocking or deadlock condition. It's going to give me information about the session number, what application, what user, what database, and so on. Now, I can do something else here. Maybe I can run a script. Let's say I want to enable that, and maybe I want to run a script. And let's say we just want to run a DBCC check DB, right? So I'm going to do that if I have a blocking condition for whatever reason I want to run that. So I'm going to call it DBCC check DB, and then on the bottom, I'm just going to put the command DBCC check DB, and then the database name. Now, I don't want to put the database there because I don't know which one it is that is having the problem. So whichever one is having the problem, I can go here and say database. So automatically I have the variable of the database that was in question for that alert. It's going to put it here, and automatically it will run that DBCC command. For that, you can create all the things like run a PowerShell script, even run a job. And I can do another one here. So I can say, okay, in the server Ibanez, for example, if I have a blocking condition, I just want to run this. And not only I want to run that, but I want to run the second step only. Okay. So that allows you to create a very powerful action that you want to do to either correct the problem or maybe do something else or gather more information and put into a log. Whatever you want to do, basically the sky is the limit to what you can create here. Another great reactive measure that you can take is troubleshooting skills. And for that in SQL Diagnostic Manager, we have a lot of areas. Let's talk about some of those. We talked about sessions already, but let's talk about queries. And in the queries, you can see all the worst performing queries. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go from, let's say, November 17th until today. And then I'm just going to open all of this thing in the bottom. So you can see all of the queries that are my worst performing queries. So what is a worst performing query? Well, you define that. So you can go here and define what you want to see here. So basically I said everything that takes more than 2,000 milliseconds, I want to capture that information and I want to see it here. Now you see a list of everything that took more than 2,000 milliseconds. Now the first view that you have here is a signature mode. That is a summarized view. And it's a summarized because it means in one row, you're going to see multiple of occurrences. So for example, here I can see 6 occurrences that occurred for this exec grooming that happened at the database SQL DM repository. And then you can see here on average the duration, on average the writes, on average, etc. So I can put all those together if I wanted to. So I can see all the averages together. And that way it's easier for me to see that, right? So I can see everything on average. Why do I want to see it like that? Well, it's not the same thing, something that ran 6,000 times, for example, and it's taking 11 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it is to run versus something that is maybe taking the same time on average, but maybe it's running 1 time or maybe 2 times during the week. So that is not significant. I want to see the one that is running with a high number of transactions. So this is a summarized view, and it's called a signature mode because if I right click on it, so you can see here that it gives you the full query, but it doesn't give you the parameters. All of the parameters are going to be substituted by the pound sign. And you can see here all the pound signs, those are all the parameters. Why? Because if it ran more than 1 time, right, it's going to have different parameters there. Now, if you want to see this information, which all of those 6, for example, then you can go to the statement mode. Now, statement mode is going to basically give you 1 line for each of those. So you can see here the same line, right? But that's going to be now for each of those. So now if you right click on it, you will see all of the information, no pound signs. Basically, it's going to show you the full SQL. exactly as it was executed. And now here we're showing you also exactly the time that it took to execute, exactly the average, the writes, and I can put all those together here, the wait time, right, the reads. Okay, I can see all of those together, CPU time, etc. But this is the exact information. It doesn't matter how many times it ran, but if it ran with different parameters or in different times, it's going to give you the exact time, not the average. Now the other one is great is under queries, the query weights. And that's going to show you all the weights that you're getting in SQL Server. And for example, I'm looking here at information of the last 5 days. So I can see in the last 5 days, where did I have those query weights? And then you can see the backup thread here, backup IO, MS SQL XP, right, write log, and so on. And this one here, which was async network IO. So you can see all of the weights that I was having. Now, one of the things that you can do is you can change this view to represent it by duration. Meaning during those 5 days, what was my highest cumulative weight? In this case, it was this one, followed by that one, async network IO, write log, and so on. Now let's see, I want to see the culprit of this one, right? MS SQL XP. So I can click on it, and then I can see this one, how much time it took. I can click on it, and then take a look at the application, the database that was coming from, master, IBANS, the session 60, I can take one of them, and the user. So I can drill down to see everything from that weight. So let's take a look at write log. Okay, that truncate was the one that was causing that time, which it was 2 milliseconds. Not a lot, but we can see here that's the most time. And then I can click on it, and then I can see that the application, it was an agent job. If I want to see the full view, the full name, I can see it here. Now, that was running in the database sales from the client IBANS, session 68, and finally the user SA. Now, the beauty about this also is that I can start by the user, or I can start by the application. So let's say I installed a new application earlier, and I want to see what it's doing here. So I can see, okay, let me see SQL defrag. So I just installed that. What is that doing? Oh, creating write logs. Okay, so what is that specifically? That insert. And I can see the insert here. I can see the full SQL text. That insert is coming from the SQL defrag repository, IBANS, session 58, and finally, that user.